Sending thing of saying, how could that even exist?
Well, let me just tell you this. Back in 2009, I made a road trip with Jason Douglas and Jason Burmis. We went and toured California, drove up to the Northern California, met Rosalind Peterson, and met her, the town she lived in, met her mayor, who also thought something was going on. And Rosalind had worked for the agricultural board. She was been in farming all her life. The farmers we went and talked to, there's something going on. They're spraying something. The trees are dying.
Right.
The livestock is sick. There's something going on. We're not getting as much rain as we used to. There's high levels of heavy metals in the snowpack. These all aren't crazy people that are coming up with this. And the guy they focus on there, Dane Wigington, we've had him on the show before. We're actually trying to get him on for tomorrow. These people aren't crazy people. Dane is worked in the solar industry for a while, and he's like noticing less solar activity hitting the Earth.
He's taken a lot of things in to get lab tests done, a lot of samples there. We've spoken to so many people, and we're going to actually be airing some videos coming up in the next segment where we have experts talking about how weather modification is being used, how it's been used as a weapon of warfare. So we're going to get more into that. Because
we have an amazing documentary from Ben Livingston, who's the father of weather weapons. This guy was doing cloud seeding, where he said they would take a small cloud, run a jet through it a few times, spraying in their aerosols, and they would turn it into a monsoon to flood areas out that they wanted flooded out. And they did this with precision back in the 60s. This was during the Vietnam War.
Right.
So you think they're not doing
allegedly,
and you think it's not more advanced now? Come on. And there's a couple articles in the Guardian. Here's one from 2012. U.S. geoengineers to spray sun-reflecting chemicals from balloon. Okay, they're not doing it from balloons, I'll tell you that. But this is the cover story. Oh, we're doing it from balloons. And you go down to the third paragraph. David Keith, who's a big geoengineering proponent, he's been confronted many times by other geoengineering activists. One of the investigators has argued that solar geoengineering could be an inexpensive method to slow down global warming, but other scientists warn that it could have unpredictable, disastrous consequences for the Earth's weather system and food supplies. Environmental groups fear that the push to make geoengineering a plan B for climate change will undermine efforts to reduce carbon emissions. So they hide it on this carbon climate change BS.
Right.
But this right here, Earth's weather systems and food supplies. We talked to Dr. Tim Ball. He was in Fall of the Republic. He was the guy who's been studying the climate his whole life.
Right.
And he says, look, the climate changes. It happens all the time. You can't stop climate change if you wanted to. But what we're doing is trying to play God in certain areas, in certain regions. And by spraying stuff in the air, we're basically destroying certain areas. We're changing their weather systems.
And that's exactly the concern. We have the United Nations Environment Program, where they're actually talking about geoengineering and how important it is to combat global warming and climate change. But of course, they talk about the fact that you can't mess with one part of the environment without affecting many other parts of the environment.
It's a weird version of the butterfly effect. If you mess with something here, it's going to change something downstream.
Exactly. And here it is right here. You have the UN Environment Program. Big conspiracy theory doesn't exist. The reporter, says to Wigington, you sound crazy, right? Saying that the government can control the weather. Well, here it is right here from the UN. Or we have geoengineering symposiums where they're talking about these things going on, experiments in solar aerosol spraying.
I totally forgot about this. We could actually, the guys could look up geoengineering patents that are filed with the U.S. Patent Office.
Right.
There's a list of them.
Right.
It's not like one or two. There's a whole list of them. I mean, this is actively going on right now, and it's happening above you. It's happening everywhere. I mean, I've shot plenty of chemtrails. I know what a chemtrail looks like from a contrail, and people say they don't like to use that word, but I mean, I call it as I see it, and I am not a big fan of what they're trying to do to us, and then how it's being played off as you're crazy if you bring it up.
Yeah.
It's just regular airplane traffic. There's more airplane traffic.
Well, and they say, well, why would they do that? Why would they do that to us when they're breathing the same air, the same sky? I mean, these are people that don't think ahead. They are spraying particles into the sky, heavy metals, aluminum, things like that, thinking that it's going to be blocking the sun. And that is all kind of raining down on us. I mean, oh, no, it's a conspiracy theory. Those are patents.
Doesn't exist.
Those are patents. Just look away. Nothing to see here. Now, this is from The Guardian, February 2015. Spy agencies fund climate research and hunt for weather weapon. And this is, of course, I think that this stuff comes out years later. They've already got this weapon. It already exists. I actually have a clip where Michio Kaku was on CBS this morning talking about the alleged use of CIA weather weapons, like you were talking about in Vietnam, Operation Popeye. Watch how the news anchors react to him bringing this up.
In part because, too, I remember reading the stories that China had used this during the Olympics, that the USSR had used this after Chernobyl to create rain clouds. I mean, did those really work then? We have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War, to wash out the Viet Cong. Governments have been playing with this thing.
Alleged to.
Alleged to, right.
Yeah.
Now,
She's like, oh, yes.
We
yes.
realize that for decades now, these governments have been alleged to have experimented with weather control, but nothing...
The government's not going to sue you.
Right.
I mean, it's ridiculous. The government's not going to sue him for saying that they did that. We have the guy who did it back in the Army and Air Force on the show. We interviewed him.
It's called Project Popeye. You know, and then he goes on to talk about how, but we're doing this in the lab. We're testing with these, shooting these laser weapons up, and they're, you know, manipulating the ionosphere. When that has also been admitted that that's exactly what was going on with the HARP program.
Exactly. And those HARP devices are all over the world. They're not just up in Alaska. There's a map of them. They have some in South America, some in North America, and they heat the ionosphere.
Yeah.
So what is that going to do? Well, they used to launch nuclear. They were talking about launching nuclear bombs into the atmosphere just to see what it would do. So these people are not above spraying particles into the air just to see what it would do.
Right. I mean, this has been going on for decades, and they talk about the Chinese doing it and the Russians, but they're all doing it. And the HARP system here, this was David Walker. He's the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Science, Technology, and Engineering. And he was the one who actually dropped this bombshell. He was asked by Lisa Murkowski about, they were dismantling the HARP program there in Alaska. And so he was basically admitting, yeah, we've done everything we need to do with HARP. We're still leaving it up for whoever else might want to use it and do their own testing. But we used it for injecting energy into the ionosphere to be able to actually control it. But that work's been completed. They're done with it now. So, you know, and they kind of put it off like, we messed around with HARP, but it wasn't really anything that we were, no. And then they talk about all these different wave blast simulators and these weapons that they're using underwater, that could actually cause tsunamis and things like this. But it's for global warming.
And instead of looking at things like, you know, real pollution that is going on, you know, like putting fluoride in the water supply, you're just taking a pollutant and dumping it in the water supply for everybody to ingest. Those things are looked at also as, you're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist. But, you know, we're talking about carbon, things, what we exhale and what plants breathe is the big pollutant in this air. And so the Pope's got to ride around in a Fiat, his little clown car. But, you know, here's another article from The Guardian, Geoengineering projects around the world. It's a whole map of projects that are currently ongoing. Well, this is in 2012, but projects that are ongoing to change the environment, to geoengineer the environment. And so you can't say this stuff doesn't exist. People are doing it in many different ways.
Right.
It's not just spraying stuff in the clouds.
Right. And it's funny because Michio Kaku in that interview, he talks about how, you know, in the future, if you on your wedding day, you want to have a clear day, you'll be able to use this technology. You know, it'll probably cost you $100-something thousand to ensure no rain. Can you imagine if there's just a bunch of people running around thinking that they need to have a rain here? And then, of course, if there is an issue with the drought like they're having in California, you know, why don't they
have 2,000 clear days? You know, they're
right.
But you know, they've got it under control. Though they're going to put black balls on top of their reservoir to absorb heat and make it evaporate faster and grow mold. And fungus was going to grow under these things. And, you know, the Israelis did the same thing, but they did it with white balls.
Right.
And they said the white balls are the way to go. And they actually have them. It was a pretty interesting article. The balls had holes in them, so water would fill in them, so they would kind of sit in the water. But the water would condensate, evaporate to the top, and then condensate immediately. So there was less water loss than what you would normally have through evaporation.
Right. Well, and then what about the fact that there's plastic leaching into the water from the hot sun beating down on it?
Yeah, I guess they don't care about those gender-bending chemicals going into the water at all. That's probably, they're probably coated with BPA. I mean, who knows? These things are probably made out of solid BPA nodules.
Right, they're like, this will just bypass the middleman. Now we won't have to pay our plastic makers to inject these hormones, the BPH. But yeah, you know, I had one of the writers from BuzzFeed kind of retweeted me when I was talking about how Kylie Jenner, she tweeted out to all of her, millions of Twitter followers this question about geoengineering and look up in the sky and what is this? And of course, that was the ultimate opportunity for the mainstream media or whatever, alternative mainstream. I wouldn't call them BuzzFeed mainstream. But they, for them to just poke fun at us and say, oh, look at their spraying. And, this is happening. It's real. Why is it so hard for them to just do a little research? Just like this reporter that made fun of Dane Wigington, telling him he sounded crazy.
And let me tell you,
That's his job.
Dane's even saying that the stuff they're spraying is helping keep these fires going in the West, too. And the fires are out of control right now.
Yeah.
So who knows? We're going to get him on the show pretty soon to talk about this and break it all down. So.
All right. Well, we've got a lot more coming up. We're going to talk about the Pope and the 2030 UN agenda and how he ties into that.
15. We got another fire going in Lake County. It's got to be 6 in the last month and a half now. Crazy.
Firearms.com today or call 770-485-7015. That's hdfirearms.com or call
for only $99, and there's no limit to the number of boxes you can purchase. Our vegetarian meals are naturally high in fiber, carbs, and protein, and they're packed with oxygen absorbers in Mylar bags. Oregon Trail Foods and 30dayfoodsupply.com. Keep prices low by buying directly from the producers in Oregon and then pass the savings on to you. Call 800-700-2184. And remember, only $10 ships your entire
7 and use promo code BESTFISHOIL to get a free 1-month supply.
Watch us. Go to infowars.com/show where you can see everything that's going on. You can watch the reports in their full visual effect. Now, we're going to be getting to some of your phone calls here shortly.
You know what, though? Let me interrupt. You're going to want to you're going to want to get on infowars.com/show for the second half of the Overdrive Hour, because we're going to play a couple reports, one of which is Alex Jones, where he kind of channeled the madness that is going on with people legitimizing pedophilia. If you haven't seen it on the Alex Jones channel or on InfoWars, we have it posted today. We're going to show part of it at least. And
disclaimer, there should be a trigger warning for all of you people out there that are offended by sensitive material.
People who don't like clowns.
It's shocking,
tune in.
but it's reality. So that's coming up. That's infowars.com/show. Now we're going to be getting to your phone calls, Trisha in Oregon and Adam, FEMA Region 4. But first, let's talk about some of the amazing specials that we still have going on. We had some top-notch specials going on all during our money bomb, but now we have some holdover from that. So
that's right.
Do you want to talk about some of
Sure. Right now we have 20% off Brain Force.
HARP report. He puts reports out like every month or so. He has special satellite equipment. He shows you global infrared every little bit at a time. And if just a normal average person looks at it for more than 5 minutes, can see blatantly what they're doing to the West Coast.
Right. You're absolutely right, Trisha. Thank you. There is so much evidence out there online. We've interviewed people where they had documented all of these silks falling from the sky, getting video. There's planes flying above, and all of these silk threads are then covering their property, covering it.
Oregon is a beautiful state too, but it is being systematically destroyed with what is going on. And 10 years from now, if you take a snapshot now and then you take the same snapshot 10 years from now, you're going to see some major changes, some major deforestation, but not from log cutting. You're just going to see it from dying trees, which they blame on a beetle. It's always the beetle. It's not anything else. It's just this one beetle that's taking everything down, and that seems to be, their cover story for everything. It's never the cause of people spraying things in the atmosphere or geoengineering, which is admitted around the world.
Right. Yeah. Please. You sound like a conspiracy theorist right now. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, coming up, more on the Pope and the 2030 agenda, blueprint